What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Marketing Podcast with End-Up Podcast, I should say. Let's Talk Marketing with End-Up Podcast, where I'm your host, Nathan Webster, and I'm excited to chop it up with you today. Today, for this episode, is just not me, or it's just not me, or it's not me alone, whatever improper English you want to say it. I'm going to say I have a guest, which I'm happy to bring on, which is the title of the episode, Mike, the Marketing COO. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for the warm welcome. I shouldn't take offense to 187. I'm like, oh no, am I getting murdered? But no, it's exciting to be here as your guest. So
I did not think about that. 187. Oh, I love it. Well, before I get into it, for my first time listeners, thank you for joining the show. For my worldwide listeners, thank you for tuning in once again. I couldn't do this without you. I wouldn't want to do this without you. So thanks for keeping the show going, rocking. We're in a new year. So in 2024, so I'm excited that Mike is going to drop some value bombs on how marketing agencies run. And honestly, we're just going to ad-lib. We're just going to have fun with this for the next 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then another thing, I would just want to make sure y'all in this new year, my goal is to get those 200 reviews so we can show up in the top screens and ratings and showings for Apple Podcasts, y'all. So if you have an iTunes account, if you have an iPhone, an iPad, or anything that's Apple related, I am asking you to fill out a review and a rating to get our show beyond the current ratings that we have, so we can be in new and noteworthy section forever and ever. So let's get into the show. Mike, Terry, my man, can you please inform the listeners who you are and what you do?
Why, thank you, Nathan. So, my name is Mike Terry, of course. It's episode 187. I'm well-versed marketing professional. Been in the ad agency marketing world since the mid-90s. So since Seinfeld was a popular show, I've been doing marketing on both the client side and the agency side. I've probably worked at about 12-ish ad agencies, digital agencies, creative agencies, design agencies, full-service ad agencies, branding agencies, and find myself now in the midst of doing a lot of consulting on the marketing side, working with both clients and their marketing problems of, how do we budget? How do we forecast? How do we go to market? How do we pivot with all the things that are going on in the world? Is there a recession? Is there not a recession? Is there a world war? Not a world war? What can we do to try and make sure we're maintaining the attention of our target audiences, and also working with ad agencies in whatever form they take to help them build out their pipelines, help them, how do they scale for growth? How do they, hire teams? How do they bring in the right account management people? And so that's what I've been doing for the better part of the last 20 years, is on the account management and business development side, to kind of show, here's the best practices, where this is where I've continued to, make hay and get wins and drive revenue, and sharing that with existing digital agencies. And it's been a great ride so far.
Man, that's a great intro where, I could spin that any sort of way. But I want to, let's just stay in this space, because I think for a lot of listeners, they're like, okay, so I need marketing. And I hear Nathan and all the guests talking about marketing, but on an operational level, when I go into businesses and when I see when someone says I need marketing, but I really see them need biz dev help by building their MarTech stack appropriately to their strengths and to their vision, a lot of people don't even understand how to integrate. And especially when I say the MarTech stack is, marketing technology stack, which is all your marketing and sales and operational software. And I say you do that through SaaS, and hopefully there's APIs, but if not APIs, you need SaaS, which is software as a service. And so, Mike, I know you're the guy that really is the person behind the scenes that are connecting all these things. So for a person that says, like, I don't know the first place to begin, and what do you mean I need to have all these things in order to make this happen? So for the person that is in that position, can you please drop some diamond bombs for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for teeing that up. So it always goes back to, where do you want to go? If we're going to go on a road trip, we're going to take our business on a road trip, we're going to go somewhere, what's your plan? What's your roadmap? What are your goals for if you're a brand new company or if you're an existing company? What are your goals? And so with those goals in mind, what do you want to do? What target audience do you want to reach? Which verticals do you want to get into? What's your service offering? What's your product offering? Then based upon your goals of what you're trying to do when you go to market, that's when then, okay, you follow build that roadmap out and fill it out. Okay, this is the type of technology that you should use. And, HubSpot, and they're not a paid sponsor yet, but, that's one of the, you can get a free service of that, where it's kind of a bundled service of your email and your sales pipeline, your CRM, everything you can do can be plugged in there. But there are lots of other active campaigns was one that I'm very familiar with and I really like. It's very, easy, but it depends on your budget. So we think about, these tools that we have, they all cost a pretty penny. So you
Yes,
have
they
to
do.
have the people internally who have the experience to build out those systems for you, or you have to have that growth mindset, like, well, I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and learn about all these integrations of all these programs. But it goes back to, what are your goals? Are you pushing content? Are you, building email lists to drip to your prospects, or do you have an email campaign sharing your wins and your victories through an e-newsletter? How's your social media presence? We bag on Meta all the time and Facebook's failures, but we all still use social media more than we use our websites. So, what's your content strategy, and how are you pushing
Preach.
that content out? Are you doing it through your device, or are you doing it through an integrated system? Going back to the old Hootsuite, what's your social media aggregator? So there's a lot of tools in the marketer's toolkit, but you have to go back to, what are your initial goals, and what is your budget? Do you want to build these systems internally? Do you want to hire a team, or a consultant, or hire someone in house that can manage all these for you? Those are all really important decisions that people need to make. But the reality is, you will need all these things in one permutation or another. So it's up to you to decide, when do you want to pull the trigger and make that decision. But you need to have, obviously have your website and your service offering, but then you can decide who's your target audience and how you want to reach them. And then that's where marketers like you and I come into play, and they map out, okay, here's how we can really bring this to fruition and drive your revenue.
Mm. So again, and I always try to repeat this whenever someone else I bring on. I'm like, look, marketing is like medicine, y'all. We can't do this type of work in a vacuum and without help. So of course, I'm bringing on, sure, you could say a competitor, but he's also someone I would collaborate with too. I mean, at some point, we're all doing the same thing. We're just doing it for different companies. So don't think of it as like, it's weird. Why would he say all these things? But also to that point, I want to come back to what you said, why you need these things. And as I've always said, if you don't hire me, hire somebody. Like, you don't have to hire
Right.
me, but please
Right.
hire somebody. Now you said, and I want to come back to what you said, because I'm like, ooh, let's stay there. Why do people, and this is not marketing, we're talking, even though we're talking to marketing, we're talking about the things that support marketing, but why do people need to have this understanding that they need to know, from the aggregators to let's just say the toolkit that they're going to use? Why do they need to have these?
They need to have these so they can, measure their success and measure what they're doing. And in the old days, we would say, "Oh, I'm going to put a print ad in the newspaper, and I'm going to run a billboard, and yay, my phone's going to ring." Is it? Someone's driving
True.
60 miles, 90 miles an hour on the freeway. They're not, looking to see what your phone number is. So that's your brand awareness. But now everything is digital, and most of their marketing should be digital. You can track all of those, clicks, conversions, website traffic, if someone responds to a certain part of your newsletter. So these are basically table stakes in running your business. Is if you don't have any of these systems, even the most basic system in place, if you have a Wix website, or one of these freemium type of websites where you don't have to be a web designer, you still need to have analytics to track it. When I was back in the olden days, when I was in college, I had a professor says, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So, as you're trying to manage your marketing budget, you need to know what is working and what is not working. And you can't do that without these tools, which provide all this measurement that you can't get traditional media. even though I don't know if there's traditional media people listening listening to this, but they know it, and
Hmm.
brand awareness is still valuable. That's why they still run TV ads, but there's still you need the call to actions, you need to be measuring it, and that's why these systems are so effective and prevalent in marketing today.
Mm. And this is the part where, especially in my classes, a lot of my students say, man, I did not know marketing was all of this. I'm good. I don't think I want to do this. Because I say, hey, look, y'all, you guys need data to make informed decisions because we're paying on results, not getting it out to people. It's not, that's not your job, is to get it out to people. Sure, that's part of the job, but you also have another part of the job is making sure that you do the job as what you were hired for, is to help them with their goal. So is that
Absolutely.
something? I was just about to say, ask you, is that something that you've encountered both good and bad?
Yes, it is. Both good and bad. Typically when we come in as an agency with somebody, they've been, I'd say, neglected in the service part of like, well, our campaigns were great right off the beginning, but over a period of time, they've just kind of, they're not getting the same clicks. That's because you
Mm,
need to be continually revising and updating your marketing out there, and say in this specific example of digital ads. You get ad fatigue. You got to make sure you're keeping up with the keywords. AI has been around for longer than the last 6 months, but it's the hottest buzzwords nowadays. So is cybersecurity. And so, how
mm,
can you find a way to make sure you're updating what your service offering is so that people are looking for that? We worked with Chipotle at my last agency. We did a lot of research into what people are hashtagging and how they're interacting with the app and how they
mm,
would order their food. And so based on these new things that customers were doing, we put them into these social media campaigns and TikTok videos and help explode the sales of their food. So it's again going back to that data, like you mentioned, Nathan. Look at your data, where are opportunities, and not just continue to run things and not look at them. It's you can run these campaigns, but if you're not looking at the data and analytics to see what else can be done to improve things, again, continual improvement is how you're going to continue to drive sales. And if
mm,
some people who don't even now work with some startups that they don't even have analytics on their website, and so it's like, okay,
mm.
well, how can we measure how effective some of these campaigns are if we're not tracking the conversion path on your website? And those are things that everyone goes through those types of technology challenges, but our job as
Mm-hmm.
marketers is to
Mm-hmm.
shine light on those and say, here's what you should be doing. And to your point, whether you hire me or someone else, these are things you need to be doing. And then it's
Mm.
coming down to whatever point of differentiation is between A and B. If it's price, personality, work, or service offerings, those are all part of the mix that companies look for. But you need to be continually measuring and improving everything in your marketing mix.
Shoot, man. Oh my gosh, those are some diamonds. Y'all might have to rewind that, but if you want to see a real life example of what Mike is talking about, the whole Chipotle thing, the recent example, and I know we're probably maybe like a week out, not a week out, a month out from when it happened, maybe a little bit more than a month out, is when, and I don't know if you, Mike, if you got a chance to see the whole REI waterproof rain jacket, do you want to talk
Yeah,
about
that was
that?
that North Face, right? Yeah.
North Face. Yeah.
Well,
Was it North?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Please share.
I think it was North Face. Well, I saw the viral ad on LinkedIn. Someone's talking about this great marketing thing, which is, if you're not on LinkedIn, you should be. I'm sure everyone is. But,
Right.
so this woman's, showing like, oh, I bought this waterproof coat at North Face, and she's
Mm-hmm.
totally drenched, and she's like, live tweeting about it. And so they cut away to, the people at North Face, getting in a chopper, grabbing a coat, or I don't know if it was a competitor, and there's like flew it out to her, and it's like, whoa. And so like everyone's like, yes, that's great. Smart marketing. You're reacting to what someone's saying in live on a live stream or on social media, and coming through and delivering on the brand promise. And I think that's what people forget, that social media is also support of customer service. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sometimes the easiest way that consumers, specifically younger consumers, can interact with brands and maybe lodge those complaints. But it's also a way for brands to quickly react, pivot, and put the fire out and say, hey, here, we solved this problem. And not only do we solve this problem, we solve it in an amazing, creative way. And then let's
Right.
pivot and use that to show how involved we are with and listening to our audiences. And it's a win-win.
Yeah, I think, oh my gosh. And we're running out of time, but I will say, and that's part of the different medias, owned media, paid media, social media. I won't go on. There's more, but to that point where you say customer service, I had a real, a very real example of that where I forget, I think it was, I got my son a phone and I downloaded an app and it basically, long story short, it jacked up my phone. I couldn't make any phone calls. I couldn't receive any phone calls. And the only way for me to get in contact with Verizon was Twitter. And then at
Oh,
that
wow.
point, they were able to verify me because there was no other way to verify who I was. And I was like, I wasn't able to get into a store. So I'm like, y'all don't discredit social. I mean, I don't like Meta or Facebook either, but if it wasn't for the social media platforms, I wouldn't have been able to get in my phone as quickly as I could. So don't think like social media isn't useful. It so is. I appreciate that example. And of course, I could go more into that. But as we wrap up, Mike, what is one thing that you would encourage from a startup or a freelancer to a burgeoning entrepreneur or even an experienced business, like especially in this time where we're talking about going to the recession, or maybe it's just a brand new year in 2024. What should we be looking forward to?
Right.
What's the last tip you give for this episode?
Well,
Or
the last
diamond?
tip I would give is one that we've been here. Diamond, with the last 6 months, we've been hearing about AI, but I think the opportunity is to go to that webinar during the new year, choose one or two or three or all these AI engines to really absorb them and learn them. They're talking about how in the future there will be prompt engineers. Those are the people that type in specifically what would go into an AI platform, whether it's ChatGPT or some vision, some creative design software. So the opportunity with AI is not to then spew out the stuff and use it. It's an extension tool. So for those who are freelancers, you can use these AI tools as an additional tool to your toolkit to help create additional content that then you can put your client's voice through or your brand voice through, and use these as additional assets to increase and improve the type of high-end content that you would be sharing for your brand. You can't just lift it, but it's another creative session, another creative outlet that you can use to enhance your brand. And it's been screamed from the rooftops, but it's continuing to improve. It's continuing to get better. We're not in Skynet and in the Terminator area yet where we need to be fearing these things. We need to embrace them as a tool. People
Right.
hated when it was talk to text. They hated voice search. These are things that are it's the new technology, and I think it's become an expert in it so that you can be the go-to person in your company or in your organization, in your network, that can help share that information share. So I think I would still continue to embrace AI is the long answer to your short question.
Outstanding. Yeah, absolutely. You just took me back to when my college professor was like, hey, you're going to hear a lot about AI, but AI is nothing in comparison to ML. And I'm like, ML? What is that? And then, of course, he broke down like how the computer coding language started, and it was on punch cards, and it was human learning, not ML, machine learning. I was like, oh, so thank you for that. So for Mike, sorry, y'all got into my head of like, oh my God, squirrel. So when it comes to people that wanting to find you because you have all these diamonds to drop more of, and you dropped a ton, and thank you. How can they find you?
Great question. I'm on all the social platforms. I'm Mike Terry on LinkedIn /PDXadman. I'm at PDXadman on Twitter, or the X, however you want to go to market with that. And you can also find me on my website at coredigitalconsulting.com.
Okay. I did not get all that, but I can get with you later to make sure I get all those links. Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, my man. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, Nathan. Take care.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got to have you back. So we got to get that scheduled. So for all you listeners out there, you know where you heard this at first. Come on now. Now show us some love with the ratings and the review. Come on, y'all. We got to get to the new and noteworthy section. We're not new, so we got to be noteworthy. That means we need your ratings and review. And so until next time, we wish you nothing but the best. So dream big and God speed.